From Mobile Tech Review, and today we're looking at the Samsung ATIV Book 9 Lite. This is the affordable version of the Samsung ATIV Book 9, formerly known as the Series 9, obviously, and a lot less expensive. This guy is $829 list price on Samsung's website versus $1399 for the ATIV Book 9 Plus. Still has the same stylish 13-inch design, 3.5 pounds. Not bad looking, obviously shiny, obviously plastic. We're going to look at it now. In the summer of 2013, Samsung announced the new ATIV Book 9 Plus, and that made a big splash. Same old beautiful Series 9 basically, but with an even higher resolution display. Really stunning stuff, also expensive, $1,400 for that machine. So they also announced the ATIV Book 9 Lite, this fella right here. Only $829 list on Samsung's website, $799 or so in stores. And it looks, at first blush, an awful lot like a Series 9 or an ATIV Book 9, but one big difference right here you can see right away is this glossy top right here. Plastic instead of that beautiful metal build that we have on the Series 9 and the Plus model of the ATIV Book 9. And, well, it's available in either this kind of nice indigo looking blue-black color that they call mineral ash black or white. Super shiny, and you know, I think that the folks who designed the Samsung Galaxy phones, somebody let them loose in the notebook department, and that's what happened here, because that's exactly what it looks like. Certainly a great visual companion to a Galaxy phone. However, the one thing a lot of us liked about Samsung's laptops is they kind of eschewed that plastic look, and they either were made of metal or they did their best to kind of make it look like metal even if it wasn't. Out the window here, folks, you got gloss, you got shininess, you got something that loves fingerprints. You can signal people, see, like this, SOS, if you need to. But on the side, things get a little bit better here. We have that classic, beautiful Series 9 and ATIV Book 9 kind of teardrop taper over here that just is so pretty looking. Thin machine, we're talking no more than a ½ an inch. And the bottom, not shiny, happily so. Still plastic, but nice, tasteful, understated. Whole lot of little Phillips head screws here hold the bottom cover on, however, not the most wildly upgradable machine, in part because of the internals that are used. We'll get into that in a bit. Speaker grill here and here, 1.5 watt speakers on each side. Pretty good sound. Samsung does a nice job with speakers, and this is no exception here, even though there's no JBL branding made obvious on the keyboard deck. Rubber feet here keep it from sliding. So, nice curvy design, complex curves, a whole lot of style here, and that's pretty much what you're paying for with this, because the internals and the display are not exactly top-notch. Now, granted, it's not more than $1,000, but you're not getting a whole lot for your money in any department except for the styling and the lightness. They're 3.5 pounds, very easy to carry anywhere, and yes, it's plastic, but it feels durable. It doesn't twist, as you can see in my hands. Nice, strong machine. On this side, we have proprietary mini VGA port, dongle not included, combo headphone jack, USB 2.0 port, Kensington lock slot. And on this side, we have USB 3.0 port, and that's where the charger goes, and standard Samsung charger that they've used on just about every smaller notebook that we've seen in the past year or so, with the very small pin-style connector that goes in. Light, easy to carry. This is our Ethernet port adapter. Now that does come in the box happily, and it's gigabit Ethernet, which is nice. Sometimes you only get 10/100 Ethernet. So here's our little adapter. Comes with a little cap to protect it, so it just plugs in right there. Yes, you do have to remember to bring it with you, but yes, it's nice to have Ethernet in general. And right over here, next to the Ethernet port, we have a micro HDMI port. So like the Series 9 and the ATIV Book 9 Plus, a lot of the ports are miniaturized here, and that's how they fit everything into such a small little tapered area and allow it to get thin over here. So that's the price that you're paying for that beautiful skinny design. And right here we have our SD card door. You stick it in right there. So that's a clever way of handling it, and you've got a lot of leeway here, so the card is not going to stick out beyond the edge of the machine when it's put in. So opening up again, you can see the similarity to the Samsung Series 9 and ATIV Book 9 in terms of general aesthetics. Got a nice little curve up over here. Just a nice looking machine, certainly. Cuts a nice profile as well. While we're talking about profile, you can see the keys here. They don't look like they stick up much, but they actually have pretty good key travel. And it's a very nice keyboard to type on, I have to say. It's rather comfortable, very efficient, right up there with some of the best keyboards to use. Easy, normal layout on this. Bad news is Backlighting is gone. Again, this is your budget Series 9. So this is a very confusing thing here. With the ATIV Book 9 Series 9 being the highest line that you can get from Samsung for a laptop, to make the cheap and budget version of it, but still call it an ATIV Book 9, that's just kind of confusing, isn't it? I mean, because we have the ATIV Book 5, we have the ATIV Book 3, we have lower numbers that are supposed to be budget designations. So let the confusions begin now. We've covered the styling, all ATIV Book 9 level stuff. The rest of it will not be. It's not going to be uphill from here. We have a nice large trackpad over here. I generally love Samsung trackpads. They work just about as well as anything could that's not on an Apple laptop. But this one I found to be a little bit squirrely, a little bit bulky. It's not going crazy and jumping all over the screen, but not quite as good. Probably there'll be a driver update. Sometimes that happens that will improve things. We don't get backlighting on the keyboard. We do get the all the way open thing that is so trendy right now. As I always say, I don't see a whole lot of purpose to that, especially because notice it doesn't quite touch the table. It doesn't really want to open all the way. Like if you want to use it flat to do a multiplayer game or whatever it is you've actually come up with. But the display itself is not terribly good. Nothing like the ATIV Book 9 Plus, certainly. And again, that guy is $500-600 more, so you got to cut some corners here to make it less expensive. 1366 by 768 display, 10 points of multi-touch. Responsive for multi-touch is just fine. Colors are just average. Brightness is 200 nits. This, in terms of brightness, is just a little bit above the ATIV Book 5 that we recently reviewed. And contrast, according to our Spider colorimeter, is only 80-1. Now, I ran that test several times because I have never seen anything as bad as 80-1. And a couple of other reviewers have gotten the same results, so that's really what it is. But that said, oddly, the contrast actually looks better experientially on this than it does on the ATIV Book 5. ATIV Book 5 tends to look kind of milky. This one really doesn't look as milky. Black levels are not particularly very good either on this. Blacks are kind of a little muddy, a little murky, and this is a TN panel, so as we move it, you can see how it's going to disappear. Of course, it's also glossy, so it's going to reflect things, but it's going to be one of those laptops that you're just going to have to tilt it back and forth until you find just the right viewing angle to get the best contrast and the best colors. For our color coverage, you can see the results of our test. 60% of sRGB. Your Adobe RGB is about 50%, so not super wide colors there, but for a notebook in this class, that's not far from average in terms of color gamut. That's the number of colors that are supported. It's not going to be the most vibrant and rich. It's not going to be, wow, beautiful like the Samsung Series 9 or the ATIV Book 9 Plus, but it's okay. It's average. It's the viewing angles that we have issue with, the contrast, and the black levels are not so super duper great. However, it is pretty usable, I have to say. And again, better than the ATIV Book 5. You can see what text looks like here, 1366 by 768. You'll see a little staircasing, but Windows handles the fonts pretty well. And actually text is fairly readable as long as you angle it correctly. So that's not the worst part of the story, actually. It's passable. It's decent. Again, it's just a little confusing because a lot of people are going to think, well, the ATIV Book 9 must be a high-end machine. You see we get a little display bounce when you tap on it. That's pretty typical of almost every Windows notebook on the market. But let's take a look at what's powering this machine. Now, Samsung in their marketing says this is a wicked fast machine, and they mention how fast it boots up because it has a nice Samsung 128 gig SSD that does about average for your standard SATA SSD drive. The CPU, they make a big deal of the fact it's quad-core, which would sound pretty impressive because, if you follow this, Ultrabooks usually have dual-core Intel Core CPUs because all the Ultrabook CPUs for Ultrabooks, the ULV CPUs, are only dual core. Well, this is an AMD CPU, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but this is an AMD CPU that really is meant more for netbooks and tablets, and this is kind of like the improved version of the AMD E350 netbook APU, as they call it, because you've got a combined CPU-GPU package in here. It is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, folks. 1 gigahertz quad-core CPU. It can turbo up to 1.4 gigahertz, and you can see right here we have hardware info running that this, even though Samsung just kind of doesn't tell you what the CPU is, and they make you think maybe it's a Samsung CPU, which would be cool. They make very good CPUs. It's actually the AMD A6-1450 APU. That's the Jaguar series, so that's the latest, greatest from AMD, and this is your Kabini and Tamash kind of setup right here. Kabini being for Ultrabooks or netbooks, and the other one being more for tablets. So not a super heavy lifting kind of machine here. 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM in here. Single channel is what's supported. 4 gigs is the max, according to Samsung, that you can get. So how does that translate in terms of power? Well, so here's our Windows Experience Index, and again, 1 gigahertz AMD A6 APU, and that has Radeon HD 8250 companion graphics. They integrate the whole thing together, so it's not unlike the way Intel puts Intel HD graphics in with their CPU. So that doesn't mean you're getting a killer graphics card. And you can see that here from the results that we have on these scores. For the processor, we got a 4.5. Typically speaking, we see about a 6.9 if you're talking a Core i5 ULV meant for Ultrabooks. And even the Core i3 that we looked at recently in the HP Split X2, and that was just a basic i3 Y series, which is the lowest power, that one even scored 5.5, so a bit higher. For our memory operations per second, we got 5.5. That's a little bit lower than normal. Usually you see 5.9. For our desktop graphics, 4.0. For our 3D graphics, we got 5.8. Disk data transfer is 7.9, thanks to that nice Samsung SSD drive. Now, while we're talking performance, here are a couple of other test results for you. On PC Mark 7, it scored a 2218. Typically for Ultrabooks, we see about a 4600 score when they have an SSD drive. SSDs really help boost PC Mark 7 scores. This one has a SSD drive, but still, you're looking at scores that are getting closer to Intel Atom, a little bit better than Intel Atom, but not a whole lot there in terms of scores. Geekbench 2, the 64-bit test, 2438. W Prime computed pi in 46.7 seconds. So there you have it. If you're going to do lightweight tasks, absolutely fine. This can handle Office. This can handle a web browser with 5 tabs open. It can do HD video playback. Obviously, you're probably not going to go above HD, but you could go up to 1080p, and it can still handle it. But this is not for somebody who does a whole lot of work in Photoshop, who needs to edit HD or full HD videos. This is not a gaming machine. This is really for somebody who just needs something light, stylish, incredibly portable just to get basic business tasks done, or even school tasks. Mostly you're just working in Word, Excel, that kind of stuff. I just mentioned the HP Split X2 a bit ago because we just recently reviewed that, and I have to say that one looks like a junior rocket scientist in comparison with the Core i3, which doesn't have turbo boost, just a dual core. So if you're in the market and you're also interested in separable products around this price range, the HP Split X2 is actually $100 less, and you'll get more computing power in a 13.3-inch package. The machine has a 30 watt-hour battery that's sealed inside it. If you undo all of these Phillips head screws, you can get to it, but it's not one of the ones that pops out with the latch and pops back in nice and easily. That's a lower than average capacity. Usually you see something more like 45 watt-hour in an Ultrabook. And to be honest, that's one of the strong points of the AMD A6. It doesn't require a whole lot of power, not this version. So here's the interesting stuff. If you're actually using this and doing moderately demanding things, playing some YouTube videos, really keeping it busy, even in your MS Office suite, that kind of stuff, it's going to run about 5.5, 5.75 hours with the brightness turned about 3/4 of the way up and Wi-Fi on. Since it's not the brightest display, I think 3/4 level brightness is fair. That's not too bad. Unlike Haswell, where it gained a lot of battery efficiency when the thing is just barely doing anything and idling. Say you're just reading web pages, you're reading an ebook, something like that, then Haswell really starts to soar ahead with super duper long battery lives. Here, you don't see that particularly so much. Whether you're doing moderate work or you're doing light work, it's really going to be somewhere around 5.5 to maybe 6 hours. Good news is it stays very cool. Again, this is internals that kind of compete with the Intel Atom at the higher end of that, and coolness is a hallmark, and it's also fairly quiet. You'll hear the fan come on occasionally, but it's never going to be blasting and whirring at you unless you try to torture the poor thing and make it play Rise of Nations or something like that. Don't do that. Really, don't do that. The Samsung Series 9 Lite has Wi-Fi 802.11bgn single band 2.4 gigahertz. That's an Atheros AR9565 in there. We'd really like to see dual band in this price range. Same thing we said about the ATIV 5, in fact, which is priced similarly. We have Bluetooth 4.0 inside as well. 720p webcam up top above the display. So how about video playback and web browsing? Here we have the desktop version of IE. You can also use the Metro version, of course. Works just fine. It's responsive enough for pinch zooming. Well, let's check a video out. See how that plays. And we can hear the speakers as well. And we'll bring the volume up to 70.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's finally here, the Sony Vaio Duo.
Not bad speakers at all.
The Windows 8 full Intel Core i Haswell machine, one of the few Haswell machines on the market, 13.3 inches. It's not just a tablet, though. It has a slider, like so. And we're going to look at it now. Hey, finally, the Duo 13. Here it is. I know a lot of you have been watching.
So there you have it. It handles it just fine, plays nicely enough. Can handle YouTube, can handle Netflix streaming, all that kind of thing. Again, an all-around lightweight machine that can handle your office, your video playback, that kind of stuff. Machine has the usual FN row up top for control, typical Samsung stuff, and Samsung's excellent update application. Again, not a backlit keyboard on here, so there's no backlight key controls on the top row, but you can control your brightness, your volume, and all that kind of thing. Obviously, we have Windows 8, 64-bit here, a lot of preloaded stuff, Samsung's own S Player, their S Photo Studio, all that kind of thing. They preload Evernote. Of course, if you don't want any of these things, you can get rid of it. Norton Internet Security. First thing I did was get rid of that and just use Microsoft Security Essentials to take a little weight off of that CPU. We've got Netflix preloaded, Plants vs. Zombies, you get the idea. Not too loaded. Our machine with the 128 gig SSD has about 62 gigs available free. We have not removed any of Samsung's software here, but none of it actually takes up a whole lot of space. The recovery partition, Windows, all the associated applications, they do take up some space. That's pretty much par for the course. Maybe 3 or 4 gigs less than we usually see, but nothing to really write home about. So that's the Samsung ATIV Book 9 Lite. It's available now. Again, you'll probably find it for around $7.99 or so. It made a lot of concessions to get this inexpensive, as we noted, and it's primarily for those of you who don't do much heavy lifting with computing, but you still want that stylish Series 9 look and that lightweight. You certainly get a lot of styling here, though you lose the metal chassis. A lot was pared down with this, so it's hard to say who exactly this one is going to be for. Probably those who want a touch of style, a touch of lightness, but not so much style that they're going to have to pay $1,000 just to get a metal chassis, and you don't need a lot of computing performance. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.